Yo, once again it's on. Back at you one more again, Real Kens TV in the house like motherfucking kitchen sinks. You know, oftentimes I talk about how I really have a dislike, a disdain for correctional officers, along with the police as well. I'm gonna keep it all the way real. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that those police officers and correctional officers are not necessary. And I'm not saying that they're all bad. I'm definitely not saying that. However, I just look at it as it's a crooked organization, if you will. So being that you're a part of a crooked organization, you're a part of the problem. That's just my humble opinion. Before I get started, just understand that I'm the self-proclaimed Mr. 30 Minutes or Better, meaning that all the stories that I bring you are going to be a minimum of 30 minutes. So if you're on your way to work, you're at work, you don't feel like being there, you're dragging, your boss is getting on your nerves, your co-workers getting on your nerves, whatever the case may be, you're leaving work, you're on your way home, perhaps you're trying to lay down and take a nap, or you're trying to go to sleep at night, depending on when you hear or view this video. You may need to cry sometimes, you may need to laugh sometimes. Well, hell, you might just want to hear a good old-fashioned true penitentiary story. If that's the case, y'all rock with me. Now, with all that being said, there is a message. As I mentioned, my disdain for correctional officers, it goes way, way back. And the reason that I say that is because a lot, not all, again, I'm stressing, not all, because I've met some very, very cool correctional officers that's just there to get their money and go home. They're not trying to make your day any worse than what it already is. But then you have the ones that are just absolutely jerks. I mean, they act as though because they got that blue uniform on that you won't get in their ass. Pause. I'm going to give you all two scenarios. I'm going to give you a scenario in which one of the correctional officers, and I've told this story on my channel prior, but it was several months ago, and that's when I wasn't really getting a lot of views. However, the views that I was getting, I definitely appreciate them. It's about a correctional officer. Like I said, he was a jerk, and he got his ass whooped. Then I'm going to tell you all on the flip side about a correctional officer. Actually, he was an ex-correctional officer turned caseworker in prison who actually fought an inmate, and when it was all said and done, I'm quite sure that that inmate wished that he hadn't fought him. So the first individual that I'm speaking of, his name is MCCRACKEN. Yeah, and I'm using his real name. His name is MCCRACKEN. Fayette County Detention Center. This dude was a real, when I say jerk, I'm talking about jerk to the fullest. MCCRACKEN was, I would say he was probably about 5'9". He's a bald-headed dude. At this particular time, I would say he was 51, 52, ex-military dude. He came to work with his uniform all creased and his boots shining. You know, one of them type motherfuckers. And so this dude, you could really tell that he hated his life, or he just didn't like inmates. It was one of the two. Perhaps it was both. They could never keep MCCRACKEN in the units. When I say in the units, meaning in the dorms, because he would cause so much ruckus, and it just never boded well with the inmates. They'd cuss him out, call him all type of B words, and every name in the book. That's what MCCRACKEN was. And so they would end up putting MCCRACKEN permanently in what we call the assessment center. The assessment center is where everybody goes when you come to jail. So at first you'll sit out, like there's like a waiting area when you first get booked, and you'll sit out there. They have the free phone calls. You know, you're trying to call your people, whatever, see if somebody will come and bond you out, or you're waiting to see if the judge would allow you to have a bond reduction, or perhaps, you know, be released on your own recognizance, which means you can essentially just sign yourself out and you agree, you promise to come back to court. So they would keep MCCRACKEN in the assessment center. Now, typically when you go to jail, you're going to be in the assessment center for at least, I'll say about 2 days, sometimes a day, sometimes 3 days. But you're going to be in the assessment center. And it's at the officer's discretion as far as how much recreation that they want to give you. So the way that this assessment center is set up, they're individual cells. So you have individual cells downstairs, and then you have individual cells upstairs. Now, it's more so of a walkway. So for instance, say you go in A. When you go in A, there's a door that you walk in. When you go in, it's probably 8 cells, 1 through 8. They have tables out there, they have a television, and they have a bathroom, with the shower. That's basically what it consists of. So you have 4 of those individual cells, if you will, downstairs, and 4 of the same upstairs. The assessment center stays so crowded that you have sometimes people sleeping on the floors because there's no room to put people in these cells. Most of your COs are cool. Once they come in, they get their paperwork done, they crack the cell, and you can be out. You can watch TV, you can mingle with the other individuals that are in these individual cells. Just once shift change comes, you go back in your cell. You may have to be in there for an hour or two, and then once you clean up, once you finish eating, what have you, they let you back out. Like I said, you can watch TV, you can play cards, you can interact with the other inmates. Stay out until, 10:30, then you go back in for the night. That's how most COs, there's a phone in there just as well. I failed to mention that. Like I said, most COs, man, they were so cool, they're going to allow you to, do those things, the things that I just mentioned. But then you got MCCRACKEN. MCCRACKEN was really just, he was just beyond nasty. Beyond nasty. Like I said, he was probably about 50, 51, 52 at the time. It's about 5'9", bald head dude, white dude. And he was just militant. Former military. He was a militant individual. This dude was so ornery and nasty that not only would he keep you locked down in your cell for the majority of the day, because he worked first shift. So he didn't get off until, I believe, shift changes at like 3 o'clock. He would keep you in your cell all day long and cut the television off. See, the other COs, the majority of the other COs, would at least keep the television on when you're locked in your cell. Is food? No. TVs are not on. He don't let you come out to make a phone call. None of that. And all of this is at his discretion. As I mentioned, nobody liked MCCRACKEN. Hell, the staff didn't even like him. Dre. Rest in peace, Dre. Dre's in the assessment center one morning. He's been locked in his cell. MCCRACKEN's hitting his door. Hey, it's time for you to go to court. Dre didn't even know that he had court that day. It's time for you to go to court. So Dre's like, okay, that's cool. Let me get myself together. So Dre, brush his teeth, wash his face, whatever, that he had to do, make himself look presentable, get his hygiene up to par. And once he does that, he's ringing there's an intercom. So he's hitting the intercom. Hey, MCCRACKEN, let me out, man. I'm ready to go to court. MCCRACKEN, let me out. I'm ready to go to court. MCCRACKEN won't let him out. So Dre gets to, he wasn't banging on the door, but he's hitting the door like, hey, MCCRACKEN, man, I need to go to court. MCCRACKEN is just blatantly ignoring him. Dre quickly realized, I'm not going to necessarily say quickly, but after about 10 or 15 minutes, it seemed as though MCCRACKEN's not even going to let me go to court. What is going on? So now he begins to kick the door and he's cussing him out. He's going crazy. MCCRACKEN's just ignoring him. Dre ended up missing court that day solely because MCCRACKEN wouldn't let him out. Later on that evening when they did shift change, Dre was able to speak to a captain, a lieutenant or a captain, and let him know what happened. McCracken had written up a bogus report and said that Dre refused court. He came in there several times and told him that he had court and he wouldn't get up. So he refused court, which wasn't the case whatsoever. Dre ended up going to court the next day. They got him back on the docket or what have you. And he ends up going to court the next day. McCracken's working the unit again. When he goes to court, the judge lets him out. He's telling the judge, Your Honor, we have a jerk of a, respectfully, we have a jerk of a correctional officer, and he likes to keep people locked in the cell all day long, so I have to call somebody to have them sign me out. Because she didn't release him on his own recognizance. She released him, but somebody had to come and sign him out. It's called third party in Kentucky, and they pay $4, sign you out, say that they're responsible for you, and basically they're guaranteed that you'll come back to court. So he's trying to call his people. The judge was like, well, when he sees his court order, then, he has no choice but to allow you to make a phone call, and I'm going to document it on here that you are to get a phone call so you can call your people. Judge was cool, man. One of the coolest judges I've ever seen. I forget her name, but she was very cool. So he gets back to the assessment center, and he tells McCracken, hey, McCracken, judge is going to let me go, but I need to get a phone call. Right here it says that, I'm to be given a phone call so I can, let my people know. McCracken's like, all right, let me get my paperwork done, and I'm going to let you out. Now, by the time that Dre gets back from court, it's already afternoon. See, the thing about jail, and this is why a lot of people ultimately end up pleading guilty, because they'll come and get you for court at freaking 6 o'clock in the morning. And you may not even actually have court until 10 or 11. So they chain you up with other individuals. So you're chained up by your ankle, and then you're chained up by your wrist as well. And it's like you're in a chain gang. You walking, you got to get on the bus like that. The bus takes you over to court. Then they keep you in a holding cell. And you're just sitting around waiting all day long. So by the time, you get back to the jail, you got to get strip searched. And it might be 3 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock before you get back to the jail. You're tired, you're frustrated, probably upset. Or you're happy because the judge allowed you to go. Just depends on, your scenario and what you're actually facing as far as, your case. And so when Dre gets back, McCracken is still there. Shift change is right around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It's somewhere right around in there. Well, McCracken's working a double that day. So there's not going to be another individual that comes in to spell him, if you will. McCracken tells him, let me get my paperwork done, let me get the shift change done, and I'll let you come out and use the phone. A couple hours passes. Now the excuse is, it's feeding time. He's telling McCracken, listen, McCracken, I understand, but, they have cell phones, not cell phones. So let me rewind that. It's my manual rewind that Hassan Campbell stole from me. And so they have cordless phones. So you don't even have to come out and use the actual phone. An officer can literally hand you the cordless phone and you can make your phone call from the, that phone. McCracken wouldn't even allow him to use the cordless phone. So now by the time, they finish eating or what have you, 6 o'clock, 6:15. Dre's furious. It's been over 3 hours. McCracken still won't let him use the phone. Well, after we finish cleaning up, I'll let you come out and use the phone. Clean up. Now it's 7 o'clock, 7:15. He still hasn't had an opportunity to come out and use the phone. He bloops. He's blooping out. He's calling McCracken every whore and B word and every name under the sun. He's calling McCracken. He's kicking the door. He's threatening him. When I see you, when they let me out of this cell, I'm going to do something to you. Time went on. He's asking to speak to shift command. McCracken won't go get shift command. Only thing to save Dre that particular time, because it was obvious that McCracken was just not going to allow him to get out of his cell, to use the phone. McCracken went on break and another officer came on. he knew the officer, and he's like, listen, officer, man, I've been waiting all day long to use the phone. So the officer's like, what? You mean to tell me he won't let you use the phone? He's like, nah, man, I've been asking him, and I just got to call my people or whatever. Here, man. Brings him out, lets him use the phone or whatever. He calls his people. Well, once you call your people, it ain't like, okay, 15 minutes, you just leave. It may take another 2-3 hours depending on what's going on and how quickly those individuals want to work to get you out. So he calls his people, and by the time he actually gets out, McCracken's gone. That's how late it was. McCracken's already, left for the evening. Dre's furious. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to get him. And actually, McCracken was there. McCracken was still, he came back before Dre left. So once Dre actually, they called him and told him he was being released, McCracken was already gone. But prior to that, he had came back from his break, and he's telling him, I'm going to get you. It's the last thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get you, big boy. You think you tough? We're going to find out if you tough. McCracken, he's just sitting in his, his little chair smirking. He's a weirdo. So he's sitting in his chair smoking. It's like a guard's tower. The guard's tower is like in the middle of the whole dorm. There's no glass. There's no walls or anything protecting you. Just a couple stairs you walk up, and he has all his little cameras and computers and everything that he needs to be a correctional officer. And basically you can just walk right up into the guard's tower and do what you need to do. So McCracken's smirking, yeah, I heard it all before. Dre leaves. I said about a month later, Dre comes back into jail. Now, the reason I know all of this is because I was a trustee. I was a trustee in the jail. It's hard to sit in them cells 24 hours a day. So they're asking, you want to be a trustee? You go around the jail, you clean up, you get to see the little women sometimes. It used to be to where the officers, if they was cool, they would bring you back some food from ODR. That's basically the kitchen where the officers eat out of. They bring you coffee and stuff like that. So, I was a trustee like probably 3 or 4 days a week. I'm there when Dre comes back. When Dre comes back, basically what happened was the feds ended up picking his case up. So when the feds picked his case up, that bond that he was out on, it was null and void. The feds pick his case up. Dre does the right thing. I'm not even going to say the right thing, but Dre, according to them, it's the right thing. Dre turns himself in because he felt as though, he got tired of the people, coming to his house where his kids was at, and they were looking for him. So he went on and turned himself in. He turns himself in. Lo and behold, McCracken's there. Dre don't really say nothing. He knows that McCracken probably remembers him, but he don't say nothing. He said, hey, he called me little cuz. He said, little cuz. Because like coming up, him and I, we were very close, and one of my family members was going to marry his family members, but it didn't work out like that. So we always called each other cousins, little cuz. Wait till I get out this cell. Watch what I do. He said, wait till we eat. Wait till we eat. Watch what I do. I'm going to the feds anyway. I'm going to the feds. I don't give a damn. So I'm like, all right. I ain't trying to talk him out of it. His mind was made up anyway. Lo and behold, once we serve the food, he eats his food, everything that he's going to eat. The cell doors are open. McCracken's up in the guard's tower just, on the phone, and he's not really smiling. He's like a robot. You never really seen him laugh or anything. Emotionless. So he's sitting up in the guard's tower, and his back is turned. Dre's on this side, like he's on this cell, facing this way, basically. So he's in this cell, facing in the opposite direction of McCracken, if that makes any sense. And if it don't, sorry. Dre comes out. He got his tray. I don't know if y'all have ever been to prison, or I don't know if you've ever been in the county, but those trays are very thick. They're probably a good 3 inches thick, and they're heavy, and they're hard. Pause. Double pause. Typically in the penitentiary, the trays are the thin trays, but in the county, them trays can be Literally used as weapons. Dre takes his tray, but he acts as though he's dumping his tray because they had a tray cart. You come out of the cell. I guess this particular day, McCracken was being a little bit lax. He was allowing the inmates to come out, get their trays off the tray. It's like the cart, the pushing cart. And then once you were finished, he would release cell by cell, and you could come out, put your tray back on the cart, go back in your cell. Dre didn't forget what had happened a month prior. Dre came out, acted as though he was going to put his tray on the cart. He grabbed him some more juice. McCracken wouldn't allow. He was so nasty, he didn't want people to get more juice. He got a half a cooler full of juice that they're going to throw away. But if you go back and you try to get some more juice, hey, I'm going to write you up. Give me your ID. Dre gets him some more juice. McCracken, he's into his phone call, so I guess he's not really paying too much attention. Dre comes around the side, walks up in that guard tower. McCracken's still on the phone. He's on cloud 9. He takes that tray. Got this tablet right here. Say this is the tray. Dre was about, he wasn't a small dude. Dre was weighing in at least 230. At least 230. About 5'11". Seriously this time. Dre was about 5'11", about 230. Nice sized dude, man. You know, he came up fighting. Everybody knew Dre to have hands. He took that tray. Whack him. When I say whack, I'm talking about boom. Hit him, split him in the back of his head. I'm talking about splitting. Your first reaction when somebody hits you in the back of the head, you know, you're not knocked out. He grabs his head and he kind of starts to go down or whatever. Boom, boom, boom. And he's talking to him every time he hits him. You bitch, you dick. I told you what I was. Boom, boom. I mean, he's drilling the hell out of McCracken with that tray. Of course, security sees it. CO see it on camera. They all run in. They trying to grab Dre, but Dre is just, it seemed as though he was trying to unalive McCracken. They finally get him up off him. McCracken split. His eyes black. He's bleeding. Inmates is laughing, basically clapping. That's just how bad people couldn't stand McCracken. Excuse me. I want to say that particular day, had Dre unalived McCracken, nobody would have had any sympathy nor empathy for that man. You would have thought that after that beating that he took, he would have chilled out. He came back to work a few weeks later. He was chill for a minute, but he still wasn't a nice individual. He was just more so just a little bit more laid back, would leave the TV on a little bit more. But it was only a matter of time before he went back to his old ways. Back, to his same old tricks. And I don't know if anybody else had whooped him after that, but I know he had been whooped before. So situations like this, and of course they charged Dre outside assault. He ended up getting an extra 2 years, but he didn't care because he had fed time he was going to go do. Unfortunately, Dre's no longer with us at this point. Rest in peace, Dre. But that day, Dre made us all feel good when we sit there and watch him beat the brakes off McCracken. And I'm not an advocate for violence whatsoever. But there are certain individuals, sometimes you got to put a little act right in them because they just not going to get it. Only thing they're going to really understand is violence. They're not going to understand the threats. They're not going to understand you trying to talk to them man to man, mano a mano. No, they're not going to get any of that. So you got to put a little act right in them. And that particular day, Kraken got a little act right in him. Now, another situation, and again, I mentioned this was in the county jail. So we're going to fast forward to the penitentiary. We're at the penitentiary. It's a work camp. I spend a lot of my time in work camps, to be honest, because I may start off like with the lions, tigers, bears, gorillas, goons. And that's not to say that they're not at work camps just as well. But it's just more so they're laid back at this point. They're trying to go home. They're not trying to really divulge into anything serious, any illegal activity. They're trying to get home. For whatever reason, I would always start off behind the fence, and I get good conduct, have good conduct, And every 6 months, you go up for classification. Once you go up for classification, they see that you've done the things that you're recommended to do. You've been staying out of trouble. Your point score goes down. You go to a camp. Automatic. That's just how it works. So I'm at a camp. There was a caseworker. Humphreys. Big Humphreys. Big Humphreys was a monster. I'm talking about probably 6'3", 275, bald head dude. Kind of, he's not really dark. He's not dark. Smooth face. And I want to say smooth face, like no mustache, no beard, or nothing like that. I think he used to play football for some. Matter of fact, I know he used to play football for somebody. So once I got to this work camp, Humphreys had became a caseworker. He was a former correctional officer. Gorilla. Now, Humphreys had a wife that was a caseworker. She worked there as well. But nobody really knew at the time that that was his wife. It's kind of like they kept it under, on the low. She was a white lady, attractive, in her 20s. I would say 26, 27 at the time. And she was very, very nice. She was one of those type of women to where she'd smile at you. Hey, how you doing today? But she didn't mean anything bad. She was just being herself. See, everybody that works at the prisons or in the jails, they're not jerks. Even though they want you to be, some people, it's just not in them. It's not who they are. So people would be like, oh, man, she wants me. I'm trying to tell you, man. You see the way she said hello? No. She speaks to me every day, and she's looking at me, and every time I look up, we make eye contact. These are the type of ignorant things that inmates typically say. Now, every blue moon is true, but for the most part, dude, she's just speaking to you, man. She don't mean anything bad. As I mentioned, most people didn't even know that they were married. The staff knew, but the inmates didn't know. I guess that was done by design. So you had this dude, man, and we're going to just call him Scott. I've used all real names today, but we're going to call him Scott because I don't really remember his actual name. But he was a big dude just as well. Light-skinned brother. He looked like he might have been mixed. Bald head dude. Had a little goatee. Stayed on the weight pile. About 6'3". He's weighing in easy. A good 225, 230. He'd been locked up like 9 years. He had like a manslaughter charge or something like that. So he had been, he had good behavior for several years. So he was able to go to the prison camp. Loved white women. There's nothing wrong with that. Just paint a picture for you all. He would always be in this particular caseworker's office. Every day, he found a reason to go into Miss Caseworker's office. And that's what we're going to refer to her by, because I don't remember her name either. So we're going to call her Miss Caseworker. And he would be in there for I don't necessarily want to say hours, 30, 40 minutes. So if you waiting to go see your caseworker, you got to stand outside in the hallway in the line, and you just waiting come on, dude, for real? But this dude's a gorilla, man. Had a real bad attitude. Play basketball. Anytime he played basketball, he's mad. He's arguing with his teammates. He's ready to fight. Just imagine the type of weight that he was throwing up in the weight pile. This dude was a strong dude, man. And so he was saying little stuff to Miss Caseworker. And the word, got around the yard man, I'm telling you, man, she wants me, man. Like I said, inmates can't hold hot water. That's why oftentimes when something happens and you do have an officer or a staff member that blesses you or that tries to help you out, they end up getting the short end of the stick. They end up getting fired and sometimes charged depending on, what they did for you, because inmates always have to tell somebody. They always have to tell their partners or, threaten the individual as soon as they won't bring something in for you, or I'm going to tell the people. So it rarely works out. Word got back to Humphreys that this individual had said something, foul, not foul, but disrespectful to his wife. Yeah, Big Scott had said something disrespectful to Big Humphreys' wife. I knew Big Humphreys was a gorilla. He wasn't, see, some people are big for nothing. I knew he was a gorilla. They had an outside weight pal. So one day he's walking past the weight pile and a couple inmates, because he was cool with the inmates or whatever. They was talking shit to him. He was like, man. He walks over to the weight pile. He said, man, I ain't touched the weight in probably 6 months. May have been longer than that. 315 was on the rack. He pulls that 315 out and hits it 15 times like it was nothing. This is a dude that ain't been in the weight pile, in the weight room in a long time. So when I seen that, I'm like, man, this dude is an absolute monster. And like I said, he was a former football player. I forget who he played for. He's furious. He is furious. You didn't say something disrespectful. You didn't say something sexual. It was actually something sexual, a sexual advance to his wife. Now, she was the type of individual, she told her husband, but she didn't go to staff and say, hey, this guy is pursuing a relationship. That's what they call it, pursuing a relationship. You go straight to the hole for that. Major write-up in prison. That's what they call it in Kentucky. I'm sure different states have different names. But again, in Kentucky, it's called pursuing a relationship. Humphreys is looking for Big Scott. He knows where to find him. Basketball court or the weight pile. He goes to the weight pile. He's not in there. Goes to the basketball court. Lo and behold, he's on the court. Humphrey always walked around. He never really wore tennis shoes. He would wear jeans, a tight-ass shirt, like a muscle shirt, and he would wear kind of like some, I don't know, like some dress shoes a little bit. Maybe some Sperry's or something like that. Not necessarily dress shoes, but he never really wore tennis shoes or anything like that. He walks up to Scott. Stop in the middle of the game. Hold on, man. Hold on. They running whole court, you know. Whole basketball game going on. Hold on. What's up with you, man? I heard what you said to my wife. Scott's like, who's your wife? Who's your wife? Man, you know who my wife is. Like, who's your wife? Man, Miss Caseworker's my wife. That's your wife? Yeah, that's my wife. And she's told you on more than one occasion that not only is she married, but she's happily married. And you keep making advances towards her. Man, ain't nobody said nothing to your wife, man. She said something to me. Oh, so you calling my wife a liar? So they going back and forth. Big Scott, he swells up. He got his, like, a little wife beater on. He takes his wife beater off. What's up? What's up then? Humphreys is like, listen, bro, I ain't even trying to go there with you. I could write you up for real, but I'm not even trying to go there. Leave my wife alone. Or if I don't, then what? Make believe like your wife is here and I just did something to her. Act like I just came on to your wife right now. Humphrey was like, boy, you walking a thin line, boy. You walking a thin line. So like I said, Scott done took his shirt off or whatever. What's up? What you want to do? This is staff. Humphrey's a staff. But you got it on your mind, boy? You got it on your mind, boy? He walks up to Humphreys. Humphreys just takes off on him. Boom, boom, boom. Now, when he takes off on him, Big Scott walks up in an aggressive manner, though. But when he walks up, he don't walk up with his hands up. He walks up on some gorilla. Oh, you got a problem, all that. Humphreys, boom, 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 boom. Took off on him. I'm talking about took off like right there in the middle of the basketball court. Cameras and everything. Humphreys is beating this man to death, man. I'm talking about because once you take out the thing about a fight, man, typically the first person that gets off first, not always, but they have a great chance of winning, especially if you really, really connect. Humphreys is drilling him. Ends up grabbing him. Now, we all knew that Scott was strong, but he wasn't strong like Big Humphreys. Humphreys was slanging him around like a rag doll. Picked him up, boom, slammed him. Again, Scott's a good 6'3", 6'4", 230, easily. Chiseled. Been locked up 9.5 years. Been lifting the whole time. He a young bull. He wasn't even that old. Maybe came in when he was like 18, 19. So he was about 30 at best, 29, 30 years old. Humphreys was probably, I don't know, Humphreys was in his 30s at the time. He's slanging this dude around, man. Finally, he gets him, and he's choking him all the way out. He got them big old arms around Scott's neck. He's choking him all the way out. Security, they see what's going on. They run up there. They trying to, get Humphreys up off of him. Humphreys is not trying to let him go. He's on him, man. I'm talking about he could have just really, really choked him all the way out had he chosen to. Now, he was obviously not trying to do that, but he was trying to teach him a lesson, and he's showing everybody else. Finally lets him go. Once he lets him go, Scott kind of, falls to the ground or whatever. He grabs his neck. He's choked out. He's out of breath. He's bleeding. He got a black eye, busted nose. I'm talking about Humphrey took a look at him, man. They end up suspending Humphrey, pending investigation. And once they did looked at the cameras, they seen that Big Scott approached him. Humphreys was trying to defuse the situation, if you will. But Big Scott insisted upon being aggressive. So due to that, he was not terminated from his job. He was suspended for, however long. I think he ended up with like a month suspension. And he was allowed to come back. He was just kind of kept on the other side of the yard, which he never really went around his wife anyway. That's why they kept it like that for a reason. That's why nobody really knew that the two of them were married. You can never judge a book by its cover. And don't ever think that just because a person is a correctional officer, that they won't get with your ass. Because they will. I've seen some gorillas that are in uniform as well. There was one dude, and I don't really remember his name. He was an MMA fighter. And he had just turned pro. So he was working his, he had to make some money. So he was a correctional officer until he could really start to make some money MMA fighting. And whenever they had a problem with an inmate, he didn't want to go in his cell, or he was acting tough, they'd go get him. And this dude was no joke, man. This dude was no joke. I've seen several other correctional officers that'll get down. They'll take their badge off. We can go off camera. Let's get down. This is just where I work at. This is just how, I pay my bills. But don't get it twisted. We definitely can get down. I'm with the shits. And they definitely are. Not all of them, but some of them. And that's why I always stress that it's not that I don't like correctional officers. I just don't like the ones that are overbearing and just abuse their authority simply because they can. You're already in prison. Nobody's looking for any sympathy because they're in prison. But at the same time, you're already away from your family. I understand where you caused it. I get it. You're away from your family. You're already stressed. Your girl ain't answering the phone. You ain't seeing your kids. Your stomach is rumbling. Your ribs is touching because you're starving. Ain't nobody sending you no money. You got all type. Your name's not on the mail list. They didn't call your name for visitation. You didn't make parole. You didn't make bond. They didn't add charges. So you got all of these things. Somebody done passed away. All of these things that you're dealing with as an inmate. The last thing that you want and need is to deal with a jerk just because they got the little punk ass blue uniform on, coming in there treating you any type of way. Because some people, man, they don't, about their respect, they ain't caring nothing about going home. They ain't caring nothing about having to go to the hole for 6 months or a year or whatever. About their respect, they gonna get down for theirs. And this particular day, Big Humphreys, he definitely got down for his. I wouldn't want to see Big Humphreys. He's a gorilla for real, man. I'm talking about if something ever happened and he ended up having to go to prison, he's going to be more than good, man. He's more than capable of holding his own. Real Kens TV. Hopefully you liked the video. Feel free to comment. Definitely share. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And be sure to hit that post notification. So anytime I bring you this action and this Big Humphreys heat, guess what? You're amongst the first to receive, man. By chance, if Big Humphreys happens to stumble across this video, shout out to you, Big Humphreys. I was there. Real Kens TV.